course, there are some stories you actually come across, and you know that, okay, if you're just looking at the female angle, you will not capture the essence of that story. But all the same, we will touch on the female angle to what we'll be discussing today on the show. All right, but before I tell you what we'll be talking about, I'm sure people who had tuned in before now must have heard me mention it. But all the same, here's a reminder to every woman who is pregnant. Please register for antenatal care. And when you do so, please, it should be in a hospital. All right? Not in some traditional birth attendant place. Please register for antenatal care in a hospital. And after you've done that, ensure you go there, sit down, and listen to the health talk. Don't just wait till when it's time for you to go see the doctor. You just waltz in and sit down there and you're talking with the doctor. Please listen to the health talk. It's very, very important. All right? Don't say, I have 16 children. I understand everything that happens when somebody is pregnant. Don't do that. All right? Attend antenatal care and listen to the health talk. All right, so today we'll be talking about tackling organized begging. Yeah, well, of course, that's the phrase the River State Minister for Social Welfare, Commissioner rather, for Social Welfare and Rehabilitation, Anuonyeh Aguma, used to describe a particular set of people we see on the road. These are people that they are homeless, experiencing homelessness. And some of them are seeking alms from passers-by. But then she called it organized begging. So I'm just going to give you the news item, just read out the news to you so that you will really understand what I'm talking about. And then we'll look at it from every angle possible, because we're looking at tackling this menace. And especially an aspect that she also mentioned, exploiting children to make this happen or to do this. All right, so the River State government says it is tackling head on what it's described as organized begging within the state. Now, this comes as the River State Ministry of Social Welfare and Rehabilitation begins the removal of mentally challenged people. Also, people experiencing homelessness and those seeking assistance from the streets in the state. Now, the State Commissioner for Social Welfare and Rehabilitation, Anuonyeh Aguma, tells correspondent Martha Okere that communities where the people begging for assistance come from have been identified, and meetings are ongoing with their community leaders to end the problem. Now, here's what she actually said. Take a listen.
You're not even a beggar per se, but you're doing it as a business, and people put them out there and put them at risk, and at the end of the day you take off whatever they beg and you put it in your own kitty. So we're addressing those issues. We're having meetings with community leaders where some of these people come from and asking that they stop, be put to it, and that we don't want to see them on the streets again. They're going to be signing undertakings to that effect. So we're doing a lot to see how we can solve this issue. But like you and I know, some of these people are just packed into a bus in the morning, brought from neighboring states and dropped in Port Harcourt. In the evening they come back to pick them. So it's organized, and we are going to tackle it head on.
All right. Now, Mrs. Aguma also said that the state government is monitoring the streets to ensure that women who exploit children by using them to ask for monetary assistance on the road are removed. Let's find her voice here. All right.
You know, when we took them off the street, the ones we could get, we've now had to separate the children from their mothers. That is if they are their mothers. And we've had to keep the children at the children's home, while we've kept the women at the rehab center. Sometimes if the child is maybe about 7 or 8 years old and you talk to the child, find out that woman that you separated the child from is not even the mother of the child. So this thing is organized. And there's going to be a constant review of what we've done, and we'll continue to monitor the streets to see how we can get them off.
Now, the State Commissioner for Social Welfare and Rehabilitation explained that the mentally challenged, people experiencing homelessness, and those seeking assistance are being removed from the streets because they pose a security threat and they deface the streets. Now, she also said that some of them will be rehabilitated.
So government is taking them off the street to keep you and I safe, and also to assist them back to their loved ones where they can actually get help. Those of them that we can reunite with their families here, definitely we'll try to rehabilitate them and have them do something that will be meaningful to their lives. But oftentimes you find out that they're not in that category. The vagrant lunatics, some we've had in the Rehabilitation Center for almost 10 years, getting care from the River State government. Of course, some of them do not even know who their families are. We provide their necessary, and then we try to see if they can learn one skill or the other.
All right, now joining me for this conversation right here in the studio, we have Precious Anuonyeh, who is a mental health practitioner from UPTH. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Constance, for having me.
All right, so first of all, the phrase that came to my mind at some point is the psychology of begging, right? I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was just thinking to myself, what is this thing that would get someone to the point where, as a grown-up, especially as an adult, right, there's this sense of value you have for yourself. Now, what would get someone to that point where you don't care about those values anymore? You just want to survive. So even if it means licking someone's feet, literally, just to get money to feed. So talk to us about how much of a mental health issue this thing is.
It's completely a mental health issue. You can't resolve or discuss this without talking about mental health. So it's a very interesting topic we have here today. But what I want us to understand is that this set of people that the commissioner has, I think she has mentioned over 4 different categories, but it's basically those vagrants that stay in the streets and beg. And then there are people that are commercial beggars. So now, and these persons are not different. They both have different mental health problems if you look at it. But I will just start from telling you, we did this in Bayelsa State. I happen to be the lead psychiatrist for a program like this that was done, I think, 2 years ago in Bayelsa State, because they thought that they had a lot of vagrants. Vagrants are basically people that beg, stay in the street, they're homeless, and they just look for a way to make ends meet by begging, staying in the streets, doing their own stuff. So we did that in Bayelsa, in the capital of Bayelsa State, in Egua, and I think it ran for over close to 6 months, and we were able to get close to 63 rehabilitated, close to 63 of them. Now, one thing I want us to understand, what was very interesting is that a lot of people would think that these people have very serious mental health problem, like schizophrenia. Like schizophrenia is very serious. Not like mental health problems are all serious, but of course there are severity to different things. Now, but schizophrenia seems like to be that very serious, chronic, debilitating mental illness. Like it's very serious like that. And why depression is maybe a little bit not as serious as schizophrenia. I think that's the better way to put it. But then what we found out is that we had a lot of percentage of people that had what we call depressive psychosis, as in they've been depressed for a very long time, and they become, when depression lasts for so long, it gets severe. It complicates to having psychosis. Psychosis is like being away from reality. You understand? So you ask a question. This is a way for me to come down to your question. We found out that a lot of people had depressive psychosis. That means they've been depressed for a very long time, and they've now been psychotic. They hear voices, they see things, they live in their own world. So that's why they wouldn't mind to beg just to eat, because they are not, those values you put have been broken. They're existing in their own world, and they feel they need something to eat, and they could pick something from anywhere to eat. Now, we also have schizophrenics, but above all, we also have those living with schizophrenia. Above all, we found out that we had good percentage of depressive psychosis. And what that helped us to see was that we were losing or over abusing our cultural rights. Africans, we are known to always look after the family, to look. And you must look after for your brother. You must, if he has a problem or whatever, you look for a way to
help him.
To help. And if the community has to come together, okay, but I think those things are broken. I think we do not realize that they are breaking because of maybe the socio-economic stress that we are facing in this time of life.
No, can add to my own.
Okay, but that is what we realize that we think people should know is that is breaking, and that's why you see people now drop their families. It's the report is very interesting, and I think it's an interesting topic, and I must commend the Commissioner of River State. But I would like to bring it down. Let it be broken down to vagrants and commercial beggars, and then yet different approach. Yet almost seemingly the same approach be followed, but let us look at those that have core mental health problems and those that are fending for different reasons. Now they are all mental health problems, but let's look at those that are severe and those that are not very severe. And one way we should be able to do to help ourselves is to evaluate, is to have data, is to have statistics, is to have even the address of these persons, because the truth is that people drop their family members. That culture, that strength that our culture gives to us to bind us together is losing. People drop family members, and we trace it back, and you find that it's because of a room in the family compound. It's easy for any of us to be depressed just with life pressure.
Yeah.
So when you pressure, and they were females. Yeah, just never amount of females. Yeah. Now, when you pressure, we use culture. We now have other culture that we now are over abused too. That makes us stress women for whatever reason. And you find out that because the husband is dead, the room in the compound is why yes, maybe she's depressed and severely depressed and got psychotic, and no treatment of any sort, and rather she should be thrown away from the house and maybe dropped in Port Harcourt or in Igua, and maybe someone will come and pick them and help them. Now the truth is that the government has to come in, and government has to still do more. Even if we applaud what they are doing thus far, we have to keep data, we have to evaluate these people, we have to rehabilitate them, and we have to reintegrate them back into the society. And it's difficult and it's expensive that government has to help us, because I think the main problem is the socio-economic stress, the strain that people are facing because of the present socio-economic state of even the nation as a whole. So you do not expect those things to precipitate into people's daily livings. So that's why these things are happening. But then we must not throw away that there are those that, why we say everything is basically on the mental health and should be resolved, is that once people lose that value, there are some form of the mental health is no longer what it should be. If it's no longer 100 or 99%, it's dropping. Because there are those that have dependent personality disorder. They just don't know how to do anything. They need to depend
on other people.
Yes, on other people. And those people can do very well as commercial beggars. Very well. And they don't care about that value you're putting. They just need to just get anything to survive. And why government was coming is that they possess some form of social risk. Yes, because they could perpetrate crime. Yes, we shouldn't throw those parts away. Now, and government was coming, but we have to keep statistics. We have to rehabilitate these people. And we talk about human resources. A lot of human resources being lost there. Some for different religious and cultural reasons that some persons have decided to press on them. So I am happy government is coming in, but I think government, we need to keep data, we need to evaluate, and we need to make sure that we use the data that we get from this. It shouldn't just be one-off.
Okay, there's an article, right, on the psychological causes of beggary. And some of the things they mentioned here is lack of self-respect, feelings of worthlessness, and feelings of insecurity about the future. And they say that beggars frequently reported to experience low self-esteem, guilt, shame, dissatisfaction, being insulted, sadness, feelings of loneliness, helplessness, and inferiority. And of course, so many other things that they go through. Now, you said that from the particular rehabilitation exercise you guys had to carry out in Bayelsa, that you found out they were mostly females who were these homeless people or mentally challenged people. So I'm also looking at the fact that we have, I was having a conversation with a colleague yesterday, and we were looking at it from another angle of exploitation, where children are being used to carry out this begging. So some women actually exploit children they carry them, just like the commissioner was mentioning. They carry these
Very
skills.
well.
Such a person.
I will tell you what it is.
Okay.
Now you've already mentioned what the psychology of beggary is. Now you can see that mentioning worthlessness. Most of those symptoms you mentioned are symptoms of depression, and they show severity. Depression goes in severity. Now, there's something we call the Murchison syndrome. Murchison syndrome, especially by Plugsy, it's typical. Mothers will use their children to beg to gain favor. Is very typical. It's done. It's a mental health problem, and this happens when there's socio-economic stress. Well, I don't think we can throw it away. It's linked, and we can see it. So we should expect more. So it's good that the government should be proactive and have a system to be able to pick that people can report back those they found in the street, and there's a system that picks them. Countries are going to have community mental health because of these things. So you have community mental health, and those community mental health know who the patients are and go back, even if they have to go to their homes to visit them. That's story for another day. Let's talk about Murchison by Plugsy. Now, Murchison by Plugsy is a factitious disorder. What we mean by factitious is people have to lie. They have to change the fact of what it is. Now, people even go to inject. There have been reports of mothers injecting their children physics with water, just so that they will feel sick and then go and seek help. Now, these ones we are seeing are possibly the mild or moderate forms of Murchison syndrome that they use their children to beg. You understand? And they know that you wouldn't give it to them.
But you will give a child.
But you give it to a child. So it's a mental health problem. Whatever the government, I'm happy the government is coming to work, but we have to deal with the mental health problem. It's good separating the mother and the child. Will be the best for the child at the present time. Especially if the child is not up to 18.
Oh.
So it's going to be better for the child. And a lot of these children have what it takes to be great.
I was going to ask you what this is doing to the psychology of this child. The
truth is that they are more predisposed than the general population to have a mental health problem, whether depression, whether schizophrenia, or whether bipolar disorder. They are more predisposed.
So
Especially of depression and anxiety.
Of mentally unfit people.
There's no generation that will have our mental fitness to be 100%. What we have to do is just to keep managing and stabilizing and maintaining it. So it means we still have to have professionals. It means we still have to do awareness like we are doing now in radio, and we have to continue doing it. So it is what it is. So Murchison by Plugsy is as serious as it is. When we say it is Murchison syndrome, it is then that the woman itself is making herself sick so as she can gain favor. Now, when it's by Plugsy, it's using a child. You've seen these things on internet. They are increasing by the day. People will snap picture and even show you what is not, just to gain money. They understand? And some people actually make themselves sick so that they gain it. So it is a mental health problem, and it usually increases in a society when there is socio-economic stress.
Wow, interesting, Dr. Anuonyeh. Thank you very much. Well, we're going to commercial break. When we come back, we're still discussing tackling professional begging, especially using exploiting children to do this. We'll be right back.
Nigeria Info will be right back.
All right, welcome back. So we're still talking about tackling professional begging. Well, of course, street begging is something that does not only happen in Africa. All right, because usually when we mention anything that sounds like poverty, people just narrow it down to Africa. It's a global phenomenon, and it is as old as mankind. For people who are Bible students, you can also see some of those stories where people were beggars back then who were street beggars. But then over the years, this has increasingly become a societal problem, and well, of course, the menace that it poses, especially in a developing country like Nigeria, right? From what the Commissioner for Rehabilitation, I'm missing the first one, Social Welfare and Rehabilitation, said, she said that they are trying to get these people off the streets because of the security problem or threats that they pose. And of course, they're defacing the city. I remember it was last year that we kept, kind of like asking questions. Why do we have this number of people on our streets in Port Harcourt? A lot of homeless people, a lot of mentally challenged people on the streets. What is the government doing? And thank God this year they've decided to do something. All right. So Dr. Anuonyeh is in the studio and he's helping us understand how much of a mental health issue, all right, street begging and all whatnot is. All right. So you can actually join the conversation. We have a question. The question is pretty simple. How do you think that this menace can stop? Do you even see an end to it at all? With what the Rivers State government is doing now, do you think that professional begging can stop, at least in Rivers State? So send a message via WhatsApp to 0809 030 6416, 0809 030 6416. All right, so before we went on that break, we were talking about the fact that women exploit children to carry out this act of street begging, and you called it some kind of syndrome that is by proxy.
Murchison syndrome by proxy.
By proxy. All right. So this is more like, I need help, but I know that if I come to you, you won't help me. So let me get someone that would look believable, someone that looks more vulnerable than I do. Present to you, and then you help this child. As you're helping the child, I'm getting the help that I need. So another thing I've also noticed, all right, because it's not just people who are using children. There are people who are using females to carry out this act, right? And that's because it's also something I have seen. I've seen where some young boys, maybe around the age of 12 or so, would try to beg alms from men. And the way they would more like vehemently resist these children, you would not see them resist the child if it were a girl. So there's that thing when it's a girl. Okay, now you don't malhandle a girl. You handle her carefully. And those people understand that. And so they will rather send the girls to go out there in the streets.
We are never far from our mental health problems. You understand? Our mental health problems are usually around our culture. It doesn't go too far from us. So that's why solving them too is to look around and know how to solve them. Now it's what it is, and you can't stop that. It's that has to be what it is. A man and a woman are not the same, and women need to have some form of leverage because there are obvious differences. And yes, and that's why you see this syndrome more in females, using females or using children. Of course, you can still have males trying to use females. Yes, you can still have a husband trying to use wife to always gain favor. So it's a mental health problem, and it increases when we have stresses like this in our socio-economic life. Now, what I think that and how I think we can resolve this problem is, I will keep on mentioning the data, that we have to keep the data, and above all, rehabilitation. But we have to get communities. We are not we as a developing nation at this time. It's better we start building communities. Yeah, that's what we call communities. Now we can go outside the skirt of the main city, the suburbs, and build government-owned communities. So if you say you're homeless and you live there and it has space to accommodate a lot of people. And if not, you can have maybe have 4 for university, dividing it clearly, or even 3 using the senatorial district. Now, when you have those communities now, what happens is that people will not even want to even, because you'll be taken to the community, but down in the community too, you will still make sure that they have some skill training, they know how to live in that we call it therapeutic community. You still have psychiatrists to go see them, psychologists review them, and they have all they need to have. But we need, and then down there are a lot of things they can do. If it's down to even as little as cleaning, as down to making beads, making whatever. And it will be surprised how much skill a lot of these people have. So once you rehabilitate them, they need to be integrated. If not, they will go back to the street. So
Okay. Sorry, but before we come to that, a study was carried out. I think it was in Enugu that they carried out this study sometime last year or so. And some of the things they noted, right? I mean, this is female outcome. So let's not look away from the fact that there is also a focus on females on this show, okay? So one of the things they noted in that particular study is that 75.1% of the female street beggars are sexually exploited, as against 24.8% of the males.
Of course. And it's sexually. Females are more than close to between a female and a male. You could talk a female is close to 9 times more likely to be sexually abused or exploited as when they are vulnerable. And it goes back to why you see a gentleman want to favor a woman than a man, because even a female vulnerable, it exposes her to a lot of things. So when we have issues like this, you should know that the females will be more affected than the males. So those females that you see that gets to even beg sometimes it's because it starts from one problem and then it culminates, it increases to what they can't manage again. So they can't even manage it. You and I, we don't have much we can do because funds have to go in. So government have to come in. I mean, make a fund that even if people want to donate, they can donate to that fund. And then you build, this has to be sustained. I fear for sustenance. That's my fear. And if you don't sustain, is a problem. And the place is vast and big. If you need to build therapeutic communities, you should start thinking of that right now. So, because the females are more likely to be exploited. And what happens is that it could start from a little problem, lack of accommodation, under the street, sexually abused, it's increasing, getting more depressed, thinking about even the rape and the sexual abuse, maybe meeting a man and getting vulnerable because of looking for accommodation, and then that repeats itself, and then she loses her self-esteem.
That's another one. And from that same study, they also said that more females are likely to be kidnapped than the males as well. So there's a lot of vulnerability, even in that level of general vulnerability. You find out that the females are even much more at risk of other issues than the males among them.
Of course, females are definitely more at risk than a man. Before you attack a man, even barely looking at his physical structure, you would want to think again. But to attack a female, that's just that, even in your preconscious that I could be able to sustain, to be able to overcome her. So you can't leave females to be vulnerable. That's what I mean. You can't. It is not. No country that wants to go will do that. I think that's why this is left. It's just I think the 10th commissioner is the same for women affairs. I don't know if it's the same or it's
rehabilitation. She was the same one.
Yeah, but it should be the same person, because when we say this, women are more likely to be more at risk of this. Even if you have a system where you rehabilitate these people, take them back to the society, you will find out that you have more detained females than males, because the male would go back to the society. But the females, yes, of course, the males will. After a while, you could go learn welding, stay with this trader or something. But some females might just remain in the community and maybe pick one skill and go. But I can tell you that in all, if you do a study, even in what the commissioner is doing now, that will be kept. And so it is something that's serious that the government should take seriously. I commend them for what they are doing, but sustaining it is as important as doing the first one.
All right, well, let's see some of the messages here. Street begging can and will end if people stop obliging them. Street begging persists, perhaps because it is a lucrative business. The key, therefore, lies in taking the luster out of it. Chimene from Choba. This other person, what's your name? Okay, this is quite long. Wow. Charles Cotterell says, I think the society itself is enough to push our sanity into a state of disorder. Most times when the needs theory by Abraham Maslow seems unachievable to people, professional begging seems to be the rescue. I have been a victim of this razzmatazz called professional begging. Sorry, please. I came from Choba for a job interview. I'm currently out of cash to go back. Can you help me? That's how I gave 1,000 naira innocently to a lady and she refused to board a cab. I was disappointed. However, street begging is becoming endemic. Vans and lorries bring people from the north and east to populate our streets and gag us in River State. I am in tandem with the River State government. They must begin immediately to clean our streets. I mean, these people, their mothers, those who use sickness to beg, they enlarge pictures of serious ailment to beg. That is psychological and emotional blackmail to beg. I am happy that the government wants to let those be rehabilitated, and let those other ones who crossed borders be sent back to their place. Sustaining it is very important. A massive camp must be built with the provision of basic amenities. It's expensive. He says the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs must be intentional with this initiative. So he's moving on to something else. He says after this, the next phase will be banning Agberos, my dear. We're passing through hell in the hands of Agberos. Okay, so first of all, I want to get your take on the first one. The first person says it's possible to stop this if people stop obliging them. So more like if we stop giving alms. Now, you are someone who's, when you started off, it's more like you are advocating for help. You know, more like help your neighbor, help your family member. Be on the lookout for them. And here someone is saying if we stop giving them, they will stop coming out.
Let me tell you something. If you stop giving them, they will still come out. If you go to church on Sunday, there'll be someone when you come out from church that just came to wait for people that will come out from church and beg them. It is not by you stop it. If you don't give, someone would give. It's not that is interesting, but it's not feasible in any way. It would not help. You started by telling us how old it is. In the Bible, we are told about poor and a beggar just waiting. So it's not possible. It's not possible. It can't work that way. But what can work? What can definitely work is what the government is doing. What can work is getting data. What can work is building therapeutic communities that will have a bead. I could buy a bead, a handband, because I know it's being produced by that therapeutic community, and I know I'm helping some persons. And there they will receive treatment, and those that should be taken back. Let me tell you, that's why government was coming. It wants to trace some. I've told you, it's family problem. We trace some to the chief of the village to resolve issues. It's not joke. Some of them are family problems. Some of them are exploitations. So you cannot deal with this thing. It's the government that has all the apparatus that can come in and deal with everything.
Yeah, the commissioner said they have traced them to their communities, and they're speaking with the leaders there.
Yes.
So back to what you're saying about family problems. Now, you know, when you started off, you said something about our culture, some of our cultural practices that put so much stress on women that could lead them into depression.
That is the truth. See, our culture, and people abuse culture. Sometimes I have this debate with people that if people can abuse religion the way you agree that, okay, they are fake religious ministers. Why don't you think they are fake cultural ministers? Yes, because people abuse culture. Some people thought bad prices are changing every day. every day. That's a story for another day. People turn it to say, okay, as a woman, this one will not work. If your husband die, no way. What happened? We need to come back to whatever the culture be, but whatever does not promote humanity will be thrown off. But you see people now use their exploitation, especially if the brother was rich. It's hard. This is before you see stories of a rich brother with other of his family members not doing well, and then he dies and his wife is okay. That percentage is low, except the family is doing well. Otherwise, they will say something. They will not bend the culture somehow to suit that situation. However, I don't care how the situation. I'm telling you from experience, they bend it. I know they are bending it to suit that scenario, to suit whatever they want.
Just to push the woman away.
To push it.
So that means some of these people become homeless, not because they did not come from somewhere.
Using a husband is depression. Widows are 3 to 5 times likely to be more depressed in their lifetime than people that still have their husbands. So what are we talking about? So the woman already is fighting some form of psychological issues in terms of depression and possibly anxiety. And then you come and complicate that with those issues. Those issues will worsen the depression, will worsen her psychological state, and then she goes down to the street.
So, sorry. So some of them, that's what I'm just looking at it from this angle. So it's possible that some of them actually leave the community because it's more like...
It's toxic.
Rather elsewhere than here.
Yeah, it's toxic. Yeah.
Rather the streets of Port Harcourt
than here. Some of them will beg you, they don't want to go back.
Wow.
Yes, some of them, you will see... No, you will see them, you take them back and you will notice the toxic nature of the environment. Yeah, we need to resolve those things. We need to resolve them. Like I told you, these things happen when there are socio-economic strength. If that person was doing well, I'm doing well, we're all doing well, maybe this wouldn't happen. But when I've told you that room has been a problem, I've still told you that there have been the case of a mother that was even doing well and died, but has only a daughter. And to a reasonable extent, we tend to be matrilineal when you can't show that that's our only daughter should be thrown away, and then the brothers should take it. So I'm happy the government is coming in. We should get those. We should trace them back. When we keep stats, I believe why I keep mentioning statistics and data is that when we keep these things, families will become, because we can't throw away the stigma. There is stigma everywhere in mental health, but that stigma can be an advantage to us as families. We look at reasons not to want their family members to be part of that stat. It's not, but it could be an advantage part of the stigma we have.
Yeah, but then there's another thing now.
Because it will make every story to be clear. If this was the issue, we would know what the issue was. Because when we take her back to the community, why did she leave? Did she have a room in this place? Where is her room? Can she stay in her room? This is social rehabilitation.
How about her farmland? Does she have access to farmland?
That's why we went to chief.
Does she have access to her shop?
To do in the occupational rehabilitation, because you have to know when you got to the person back to where the person will stay, you have to know what the person will do to have food on the table. That it goes to farmland. That's where chiefs come in. These things have led to resolving family problems that have been abandoned. Family problem that possibly the generation before was even biased to solving the problem, and then it complicated to that matter and nobody resolved it, and then.
So how about, since we're talking culture now, there are, even though it's been abolished, the Osu caste system, it's still being practiced. So people come from villages where perhaps their father did something and then everybody sees them as an outcast. And so the staying in that, so the children grow up, perhaps their mother feels like there's nothing else I can do. I'll just manage myself and stay here for my kids. And then these children grow up and they're seeing this kind of resistance, this kind of hatred. They don't even understand what's going on.
Social inequality.
Yeah, and so for them, it's better elsewhere than this community.
Of course. Yeah, we have
so
that.
How do we even get our...
it is government. That's why it is a ministry. That's why there's a commissioner. She has to have everyone. She has to have psychiatrists like us working with her. She has to have social workers. She has to have psychology. That has to be a team. Even if she starts with one team, but the plan, the future of this should be the one that can sustain it.
So this is something that it shouldn't be that we are planning to move them back to where they come from. It should be like, okay, we have a 5-year, 10-year plan of
that's
doing
the problem.
this.
That's the problem. I just hope we do. Because we are so good with, we are doing it.
Yeah, Nigeria is always one sharp.
What is it? I'm telling you, keep it. The government as a state would gain the human resources from there. I tell you for sure. They would gain, and they will resolve a lot of issues that only very committed non-governmental organizations can, if not them. They would. And at the end, the mental state or the mental status of the state would be better. And when mental status is better, there is increased productivity. People cannot even produce well just because they are depressed. Well, government has to come in. I think that's like one basic way of knowing they care so much about the mental health of the society. All
right. Well, let's get to the phone lines. We'd like to hear from you. How do you think organized begging can be stopped? And secondly, do you think that the government's efforts in tackling this menace is enough? 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0002, or 0817-923-0007, 0817-923-0007. We're still taking your messages via WhatsApp. The number is 0809-030-6416, 0809-030-6416. We're also live on Facebook, so please get on Facebook and join the conversation right there. Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. Would like to hear from you. It's Female Outcome, and we're discussing tackling organized begging, especially using children, and of course females as well. Prince Paul on WhatsApp says, "Hi, good day. I'm a keen listener of your educational program. I think this begging syndrome is as a result of a failing system. Then I also heard of values in our society, but then I want to ask, does a poor beggar care about dignity and values when he's hungry? Governments should please rise up and show love to these vulnerable people in our society, rehabilitate them, and reintegrate them into the society." All right, that's from Prince Paul. Thank you. 0817-923-0002 and 0817-923-0007. Now, this brings me to some of the social intervention programs that the government has been doing for some years now. Even recently, the palliatives that they have released meant for the poorest of the poor. That's the way they put it. The COVID-19 palliative, where they're sharing food items and money or cash gifts as well. What do you think? Is that enough? Is that okay? Maybe not enough. Is that like a good starting point to help, like just like they have said, cushion the effects of the harsh economic realities that we're facing?
See, is it enough? Well, I can't still say that getting that one is not good enough. But the truth is that human wants are insatiable. But
at least if government is providing me food, I wouldn't have to bother about food.
See, the thing is that I think it's more important that for you to come, and I think it should be used immediately it is available. I think we shouldn't even be having insinuations or even trying to even think that we have incentives or palliatives and they are not being used part time. We shouldn't keep them for anybody. That you shouldn't keep palliatives. Palliatives are not kept because you don't know the other person's present situation. So whatever, it shouldn't even think of it. But I don't think it's enough. But I think it should come. It should still take me back to why we want to have a therapeutic community that can make this program sustainable that the government is doing. Because those communities, when palliatives come like this, they should go to them. I'm not a fan of. Palliatives should get to the poorest of poorest. It's very important. If it doesn't get to them, it has a boomerang effect on the economy, and what that does is this sense of entitlement. You have a generation that is more narcissistic. You have a generation that feels a lot of entitlement because of overtime palliatives. Of course, these are the same things you see in a child of a rich father that is not properly trained. So it's the same thing. It happens in society. And we've seen that happen a lot of times. You find out people that own more land in the capital of a place not going to schools, even when they have schools in their own land. You understand? So I'm not a fan of palliative. I think palliative should get down to the poorest of poorest. And if we have good stats to even know these people and we'll be able to bring them out, and after bringing them out, we are keeping our stats very well, then we are sure to gain that we can be able to take palliatives to the poorest of poorest even when they come. And I would also say that palliative should be used just as immediately as they come. It shouldn't be kept for. There's no reason why you should keep palliative the next day. Because I mean, even when we pray, we say, "Give us our daily bread." So bring it let people survive to or circumstances to judge for others. That's my own take.
All right. Well, we're still taking your comments, and of course, still waiting to hear from you. All right. What do you think can be done? Because the state governments, I remember when the commissioner was talking, I think sometime last year or so, she said this is not the first time that they have done this. In fact, she said that these people are brought into the states from other or neighboring states in vans and all that. And in the evening, they are taken back. It's like someone's job somewhere. Now, she has said we have taken them back to where they came from before, and then they come back. But then this also brings me to another angle now, and this has to do with human trafficking, right? That is happening in our country. Yeah, sometimes it happens. What is it called now? Nigerians are moved outside the country for that particular purpose, but then within the country also it happens. We hear about kidnappings here and there. Children are being kidnapped, and I want to believe that sometimes these children are actually kidnapped and they are taken elsewhere and used to for this street begging. So it means we also have to look at what's the name of that other agency, NAPTIP. So
Okay.
this shouldn't just be something the social welfare ministry is handling. It means NAPTIP should also be involved.
Well, you see, why it works is this way. Why I think it should work, maybe it's my own personal view, is that if it goes back to data and stats, if this is done well and fully well documented, and there's a report, NAPTIP do not have any reason not to look at that report. Well, of course, NAPTIP could have maybe one or two representatives during the process to help them with other information. But the report that comes out would help NAPTIP. And then, of course, that stats per time could be shared within government organizations. And yes, it could be shared between government organizations for the sake of saving society. Yes, that's enough. For the sake of public safety. Now, when it's shared, of course, when you lose one or two persons, you cannot start tracing how did this person live. This person went back to the family. There'll be someone to hold. No, this person was detained back. He's still in the community, in the therapeutic community. Okay, so how did he live? You have something to work with. But yes, not. I just don't want us to do this haphazardly and do not have a system that can keep it. So I am not. It's not bad if NAPTIP is not informed at the moment, but the report should be copied clearly to NAPTIP and all other necessary organizations that are involved in social welfare and social rehabilitation.
Well, of course, Agwasim Kenneth was as if he was listening to me or something. I think we both were talking at the same time. So he says many of these street and corporate beggars are victims of human trafficking, and therefore the Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Welfare can also partner with the NAPTIP in the evacuation of these very vulnerable people. All right. And then is it enough to take them back to where they came from?
Yes. You belong to the state. You belong to the state. Now, I just understand the way the Nigerian systems work. There are states, federated states. So it's first thing for you to go back. The truth is that we have NIN, and of course we tried, because of the way we've been to, we fear that we are too tribalistic and we are going to be you are too tribal, maybe a bit more tribalistic. That's why we are not having state IDs. People just talk about their state of origin, but the truth is that you belong to that's why you have state of origin. You are in that state, and we have said a lot about dwelling more on state of residence. That's not the talk why we are here now. But if you belong to the state, you belong. So that will be traced back to your family. So that's why the government have every right to return those. And those that are from River State will remain in River State. If you have to take them back to Ahoda, back to Ichie, back to, even if you were Akara in Canada local government, you will trace them and take them back. But then there are still those you take back to their states. And when you take back to their states, usually what is done is from the Commissioner of Social Rehabilitation to Commissioner of Social Rehabilitation for everyone you return back. So they must just they should have to keep the start. I think it's one of the most important things in the exercise.
All right, so well, thank you very much. Before we go now, I have one more message here. Prince Paul says, my concern about this issue in Nigeria and Rivers State in particular is that these vulnerable people are brought into the state from another state, which is wrong in all ramifications. I think it's a syndicate group involved in this whole mess. So a committee should be set up to monitor and arrest these traffickers and culprits. However, this is not the first time government is doing this. All right, thank you very much, Prince Paul. And thank you as well, Dr. Paul Anuonyeh. But okay, you've already talked about rehabilitation.
Dr. Precious Anuonyeh.
Jesus, it's the text.
we call it Freudian tongue.
Oh my
slip
God.
of tongue.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Precious.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. But before you go, perhaps in one sentence, you could help us understand what rehabilitation should look like for a child who has just come out from this kind of environment.
Yeah, first thing first, it's traumatic. It has it's psychologically traumatic, so you have to do what we call psychological first aid. So you have to know with psychological first aid and proper psychiatric evaluation, you'll be able to know what the problem is and pick out a mental health problem, and then that will now be directed and channeled for that particular child or the individual. But rehabilitation generally, in a brief, it can be divided into 4 parts. Okay. Now we have domiciliary rehabilitation. You talk about the person, where would this person stay, and then in a program like this, they now have to check. You now have to go down to the family. That's a way you can properly do a domiciliary rehabilitation. Then you have vocational rehabilitation, where what would this person do? So if this person say, okay, I'm a farmer. No, I learned welding. No, I learned baking. No, I was cooking in this place before I left. Okay, then getting back to what the person can do. Okay. Most times you can need legal stuff and all those words. But then that's vocational rehabilitation. Now you have educational rehabilitation. The person is a student. How do you help the person get back to school, and where did the person miss school? So then those are the core rehabilitation.
The last one. You said
that's the fourth one. I think the fourth one is not social rehabilitation. I'm trying to get the fourth one now, but I can't really pick it. I think I will. Okay. When I get it, I'll give it back to you.
All right. Thank you very much. So basically, let's find out where this person will live, what they can do, and that's more like a start, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Precious Anuonyeh, mental health practitioner, for being on the show today. Thank you very much.
Okay. I think the other one is occupational.
Occupational.
Now you have to get back to the person's job if the person have any of all those issues. Vocational and occupational have some differences. Some persons might need to learn some skills, and that's vocational rehabilitation. Occupational is that the person lost job because of a mental health problem. So that's the fourth. All
right. So occupational is the last one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I also had a Freudian tongue like you. I lost it. Thank you, Constance, for having me.
You're welcome. All right, that's it on Female Outcome today. Thank you for being a part of it. And that's it on the Midday Cruise as well. Remember to follow us on social media. Nigeria Info 92.3 PH on Facebook. Nigeria Info FM _ PH on Instagram. You can also find me, Constance Mega, on Twitter, and Constance Mega on Instagram. The sports crew is around the corner. God bless you.